Do you have any advice for raising teenagers in a time where immorality is seen as normal or even encouraged in the schooling system? One of the most common questions I'm faced with is, what do I do for my children's schooling? And I always tell people, may Allah help you. It's a very, very difficult time for the education of children because you're faced with the challenge of either higher education and better education with a bad influence, or often a weaker education and the hope of a better influence. So again, I cannot overemphasize to everyone, you must understand. You must understand. If you do not have a good marriage, you cannot have successful children. It's one of the key matters. It's one of the key matters. If you do not have a loving home, your children will not believe you that Islam is the answer. They won't believe you. So children can withstand a lot. They can withstand a lot if there's a loving home. And they'll find it very difficult to be disloyal to their parents when their parents have been so good to them. And how were they good to them? What was it? Did they get lots of presents? Did they go on trips? What was it that was so great? There was always love. It was a happy home. It was a place where everyone was happy together in that home because there was respect. There was good character. People worship together. So they learn that Islam is a wonderful thing, and my parents are very good Muslims, and I don't want to disappoint them. And so they can take the assault of the haram and survive it. But everyone, please understand, I have dealt with many ghafil parents, many heedless parents over the years who don't realize that every argument, every insulting remark, every spiteful remark, the children goes in their minds and in their hearts. And you only have a small window. Time goes by very fast. Those little kiddies that you think are your kiddies, suddenly around 13 to 15 become big people. And they're not moldable anymore. They're actually maybe disregarding what you think and say. So if you were a bad example all those years, they are going to completely disregard what you think and what you say, and they're going to find an alternative. I'm going to do it different.
Can you define that?
Sorry?
Define that?
Can I define it? The alternative, well, I grew up in a Muslim family. One lady told this to me several years ago, who had a very dysfunctional marriage and an unhappy home. She said, my children look across to the English neighbours and they're having barbecues and family time together and enjoying themselves, and here we are, the Muslims, fighting it out and bashing each other up and insulting each other. So what's the child going to think? This is my Muslim family. Look at these people, they're civilized. They have a good life together. They enjoy each other's company. And look at us. And so they're going to think, well, they go through school, they're not impressed by their parents, they don't have a happy life at home. Then they go through school and into university because the parents are obviously into the dunya and they want their kids to do well, and so they're going to, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a something. And the kids are going to be exposed to a lot of ideas. There's no one supervising them. They can meet every kind of person and be exposed to every kind of idea. They might end up being atheists, and that's not unusual. And that's starting to appear more and more. We have more and more people coming to us saying, my son doesn't want to be a Muslim anymore. My daughter doesn't want to be a Muslim. Okay, well, where were you for 20 years? What was going on? But I was right, my husband was wrong. So Malchaya, she has a line. You can be right, or you can be happy. So what do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? You can go for years saying, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right. But your children are the one who are going to kill you, because there's nothing more painful than having children who are far astray. It's very, very painful. One of the experiences I had quite a number of years ago, we were involved with a family where the son was one of the murids, and he had a sister who had gone astray. And so we were involved in trying to help this family and help the situation. And so finally I met the mother. One day in our travels, I met the mother, and you can't hear properly. Okay, I have to raise my voice. There we go. Can you hear now? Beautiful. So, finally I met this lady, and she comes out and she greets me, Assalamu alaikum sahab. And she looks me in the eye. It's the first time I met her. But I knew her. She knew me because we were involved with her kids. She looked me straight in the eye. And she said, unbearable pain. That's what she had to tell me. Unbearable pain. So, you should think about what you're doing. It's not in your hands. These kids are small now. You can tell them, sit down, be quiet, go here, do this, do that. It's not going to take many years, and they might even say, I don't want to do that. They might do it, but internally they've made their decisions. And you can't change the heart now. You have to wait another 10 years to see if they're going to understand through their own efforts. And you may not get them back.
There's someone in an abusive situation where, say, for example, where a lot of us, the man refuses to change and refuses to stop beating his wife. And does it become incumbent upon him to leave?
So I'll tell the question. I'll repeat the question out loud so everyone can hear it. So this sister is saying, well, what if the man is abusive and he doesn't change? And isn't it better to part and to give your children a chance? Sometimes it is. Because, though we do not encourage people to get divorced, sometimes divorce is necessary because the dysfunctionality is so bad and the example is so bad to the children that a separation where there is peace and harmony gives an opportunity for some functionality where the children can see that Islam does work. But before you take that step, I would like you to keep in mind a story from my stepmother. So my brother, this after I was married, he got a big watchdog, a big rah-rah-rah dog. So she used to feed the dog and look after the dog, and so then she went to visit her family. My family are Albanians from the area of Kosovo. So her brother had got a watchdog, and this was another big, mean dog, dog. And so, because she was used to the big mean dog that my brother had, she went over to the big mean dog, but not out into the fenced area where he was, and to the doggy, you know. And the doggy comes out, and her sister says, don't do that, he's wild. No one can go near that dog. So every day, and she'd give him a little bit of food, So he started, this is a true story. And then she'd give him some food. So he starts getting a little bit happy when she comes and starts wagging his tail. And so next thing, she went out there to the doggy. And he's happy and he's jumping around and playing with her. And there were some workers who could see through the window. And they said, look at this lady. She went out to the dog. And they're standing there looking at that because the dog nearly attacked them. No one could believe that she'd actually gone out there and made friends with this big monster. So, treat people the way you would like them to treat you. And a little bit of love goes a long way. And have good akhlaq, and you'll see results. So if you honestly try, and you have to be consistent in trying, which is where most efforts to repair relationships are destroyed because there is not a consistency. If you consistently try, then the other person will eventually change. So you have to judge the situation after you have given it made a genuine effort of not expecting the other person to be the way you want them to be, but being the way you should be before Allah and having makarim al-akhlaq. So if after a very sincere effort over a good period of time and with no result and a very severe dysfunctionality, a divorce in such a situation may be the best solution. But keep in mind another very common phenomena. I don't go out and do research. I just see all these situations come by me one after another, and you start to see patterns. And one of the patterns is the very difficult problem of raising boys once they reach puberty. Boys want a man. They do not want to be raised by a woman, and they will not listen. And a lot of women get into some very severe and difficult situations after a divorce when their boys start growing up. So I noticed this. My nephew came and lived with me for 2 months. I had a 21-year-old from New Zealand with me, from Australia. It's even worse. So anyway, and I tell him, Jibril, as soon as Sheikh Noor walked in, he would turn into a little pussycat. And Sheikh Noor wouldn't even say anything, just give him a look. And if he said to him, Jibril, it's a very bad characteristic to not make your bed every morning. It gives a very bad impression about yourself. So every morning the bed was made. It's the impression of a man. It has a very different effect than a woman does. Boys want men. And so men have to also consider doing what is right to preserve the benefit of their children. The Sheikh said homeschooled children tend to be weak from lack of socialization and other teachers. How can we toughen them up? The matter is that one does tend to notice that children who are homeschooled do not have, they don't have the challenges that children have in schools, of having to get on with other kids, having to stick to a schedule, having to stand in line, having to have patience, having to wait your turn, having to get on with others. And so they do tend to show this lack of social development. This would not have been a problem a century ago, for example, or even 50 years ago, because most Muslims lived in very large family situations that even if you had, this is common where my family came from, that they had walled off homes. They'd have a large family home that had a wall around it, and there would be, between all the cousins, around 30 kids. But now everyone's living in a small place in a nuclear family, and so the children are isolated. But it's that choice again of, do I homeschool and protect my children from the haram, or do I send them to a school and then face the problems of haram things that I can't remove, or desire for haram things that they're exposed to? And so each situation, everyone has their own independent situation and their independent opportunities. The problem, the really severe problem with schools is around the age of 12 years old. So up to 11 or 12, you can get away with it. But after that, it's a whole different thing. So if you are homeschooling your children, I would suggest that you put your kids in, for example, something, just example, I don't know if this is practical, but you know your life here better. Things like a football team. Go to a football club so that they can run and with other kids and get kicked and beaten up and work it out and fight and do the whole thing. So they have other activities that they can participate in with groups of children in. So find something, the karate club, the football club, the whatever, that they're involved with groups of children.